What's the most insane coincidence you've experienced? I was once mugged by 4 guys on one of the main shopping streets of Nairobi, Kenya. One of the guys had me in a chokehold, and just before I was about to pass out, they dropped me and ran. At the time I didn't know why. 12 months later, sitting on a beach on an island in Thailand, I meet a British couple who did business in Kenya, and we start to talk about how dangerous it was getting for foreigners. They described an incident the year before of turning a corner and seeing a white guy being mugged, and a shopkeeper rescued him by hitting one of them over the head with a bat. They were in the same street, on the same day, at the exact same time I was there. It was me who they witnessed being mugged. What are the odds of randomly meeting up on a beach in Thailand a year later? I sold my LSAT study books to a half-price bookstore. 2 years later, I found them on the bookshelf of the man I would later marry. I live in Australia and I have for almost my whole life, but I was born in Dubai. Every weekend in Dubai my mum would take me to the Hilton Beach Club and sit me in front of the pastry chef and eat. We moved away from Dubai really early on, so I don't even remember much. Fast forward to 17 years of age, a new kid at school had just moved from a nearby town. We became friends and we both loved cricket, and we practiced a lot together. My dad and I were giving him a lift home after we were practicing, and dad asks, "Where were you born?" and he says Dubai, and the conversation continues and I say I was 2 etc. Then he says, "My parents used to be the pastry chefs at the Hilton Beach Club," and this blew me away. Here we were 16 years later, halfway across the world, and every weekend I sat in front of his parents and ate what they made for me. To this day I still get goosebumps thinking about it. I mean, what are the chances? A few years ago I into a cab heading out for the evening in downtown Toronto. Shortly after being dropped off I realized I left my phone in the cab. I tried calling it with no luck. I called the cab company, but because I had flagged the cab and paid cash they had no real way of knowing which cab I was in. I figured the phone was as good as gone and went about my night. Many hours later, and having moved around the city quite a bit, I am ready to call it a night, so flag another cab. Sitting in the back seat I start to think the driver looks familiar and realize that I'm in the same cab I took earlier. He hasn't found a phone, but I start looking anyways, and sure enough there it is, jammed in the seat. Me and my flip phone were happily reunited, only for me to put it in a washing machine 2 days later. An American friend of mine by the name of Tom took his family on vacation to check out Antarctica. He met an Australian guy named Paul on Christmas Day in Antarctica. They didn't exchange contact info. A year later, Christmas Day, they take their vacation to Machu Picchu. He is looking down at a map when he hears, "Hey Tom, how the heck are you?" It was Paul, taking his family on their annual trip as well. That's just next level stalking. Never could explain this payphone incident. Saturday night out with friends. We decide to call my friend Al to see if he wants to join us. This was in England long before mobile phones, so we had to use one of the iconic red phone booths. Someone was already using it, so we had to wait a few minutes. Guy leaves and we cram in the booth. Now, in those days, in order to make a call you would first get a dial tone, then call the number. When the person answered you would hear a bunch of beeps, at which point you insert a coins. So I pick up the phone but hear no dial tone. I hang the phone up and try again. Still no dial tone. Seems to be still connected to the previous call. I say hello to see if anyone is still on the line. Person answers hello. It was my friend Al. He had just picked up his phone to make a call, and somehow, miraculously, without even dialing his number, we were connected. We all went to the pub after and tried to figure out how the heck this happened, but it remains a mystery. If I did not have my friends with me at the time as witnesses, I would have believed it was my mind playing tricks on me. This is when you start believing the Truman Show is about you. In 2004 I was 18 and on a 3-week tour of Europe. I was at the Louvre and had just experienced the clusterfuck that was the Mona Lisa exhibit. After looking at it for 2 minutes I started to wander around aimlessly. As I was walking, an older couple asked if I knew how to get to the Mona Lisa exhibit. I told them yes, and because I'm horrible with directions, I'd be happy to walk them there myself. They were really nice and very appreciative that I was taking time to help them. They asked me where I was from. US in Nashville, but I mentioned my parents were immigrants from Italy. They told me they were from Portugal on anniversary. We talked a bit more, told them my name, and they were really excited about since I shared the same name as their grandchild. Anyways, we get to the exhibit and I go to part ways and shake their hands but get pulled in for 2 massive hugs and a kiss on the cheek. They give me their address and say anytime I'm in Portugal to stop by and I'll have a place to stay and eat. We take a group photo and leave. 7 years later I'm in Munich for Oktoberfest. I'm standing outside my hotel waiting for my friends when an older couple ask if I know how to get to the fairgrounds. Again, I'm crap with directions, so since I'm headed there I tell them they can just follow me and my friends. Again we start talking about where we are all from. Now, I have a memory like an elephant, and once they mention they're from Portugal I start to think maybe these are the same people. I ask them if they have grandkids and they say they have 6. I ask if one of their names is Historiophiman. They look at each other sort of surprised and say yes. They ask how do I know that, and tell them that I had met them 7 years prior in Paris at the Louvre. The old lady gets really happy and starts crying and starts to hug me. They say they remembered me now and asked why I never came to visit, that they had our picture in a frame on their wall and always wondered what happened to the nice American boy. We spent the next 3 hours drinking beers and catching up. Luckily we got there early so we were able to get an empty table and they bought all the beers the entire time. This time they demanded I give them my email so we could keep in contact. I even added their son on Facebook. 2 years later I go and visit for the summer and sure enough there on the wall amongst the rest of their family pictures is 18 years old me standing between them. In high school, my friend set me up with her boyfriend's cousin. Let's call him Jack. Jack and I were walking around an amusement park and started talking about recent family spring break vacations. Turns out, both Jack and I had been in Las Vegas during the same week. We stayed at the same hotel. The conversation changed subjects when Jack stopped in the middle of the sidewalk and said, "I saw you in Las Vegas." I thought he was full of crap. There's no way he would remember some random girl among the thousands of people there. He told me the exact place he saw me, and that my sister and I were posing for a photo. We got back to my house and found the picture. There were Jack and his brother in the background. When I was in grade 2, our family moved from Manitoba to Arizona for a year due to a contract my dad was working. We rented out the house fully furnished for the year. While in Arizona, we flew to Alberta one weekend. On the flight from Arizona to Alberta, I sat beside a boy my age and we started talking. It went something like this. Me: "What city are you from?" Him: "Winnipeg." Me too. Me: "What school do you go to?" Him: "School name." Me: "Cool. I used to go there too." Me: "What street do you live on?" Him: "Street name." Me: "I lived on that street." It turns out, his family was renting our house while we were gone. So I was sitting beside the boy who was sleeping in my bed while we were in Arizona. About 10 years ago I tried to get into Six Flags with a tiny keychain Swiss Army knife. It literally had a dull 1" blade. They told me I could either throw it away, take it to my car a mile away, or rent a locker for like $10. So I decided to hide it in the planter. I looked down and saw a big piece of bark laying in the dirt and figured it would be a good hiding place. I picked it up and found another freaking mini Swiss Army knife. I placed mine next to the first and went into the park. When I returned, the other knife was gone and a smiley face was etched into the dirt in its place. My family used to take little summer vacations. One summer, I was about 7-8, we stayed at a campground about 4 hours from home. There were a bunch of kids there and one day we all started playing tag. I was IT and was chasing another young boy, and when I tagged him, I pushed him too hard and he fell and broke his arm. I remember the scene vividly. Fast forward to college. I became good friends with my neighbor in the dorm, and we ended up getting a place together our sophomore year. The following year we went out for a few beers and the topic of broken bones came up. I've only broken one bone, and it was my arm when I was 7. Some kid at a campground pushed me over while playing tag. It was me. Still can't believe it. My first semester of college, I moved out of state. I was first to move into the apartment and had a few days to myself. After orientation I found my new roommate sitting on his bed. When I introduced myself, he asked where I was from. When I told him, he said, "I used to have a friend named Simon." I said I used to have a friend named Will. We were best friends in 1st and 2nd grade until his family moved. When I was in high school, I was aimlessly playing around our library one day. Like any large public high school, our library had literally thousands of books quietly tucked away in shelves, and rarely, if ever, touched. That day I pulled a book at random from a shelf in the back, and sat down to read it. After opening it, a slip of paper fell out, and I quickly recognized the -10 digits written on it as a phone number. I hastily read the number, and it was my older sister's number, who had graduated my high school years earlier. Someone wrote a number and tucked it away into a random book in the back, until I found it years later. As a college sophomore, I went on a trip to France by myself. I was sitting in Notre Dame Cathedral, listening to music, when a girl I dated in high school sat down near me, totally at random. We were both speechless when we saw one another there, out of the blue, in a foreign country within a vast cathedral. All while Quasimodo looked down sadly, knowing his only love forever out of reach. This coincidence is straight up sorcery. Was kayaking with my family along a river when I thought I would pull a fast one on my brother. So I yell, "Hey, look, a bald eagle," to my brother so I can do the whole "made you look" game. But to my surprise he goes cool. At this point I think he is just messing with me, so I can't say the whole "made you look" thing. So then I look up and a bald eagle swoops down, catches a fish and flies to the other side of the river. One of the most magical coincidences ever. Go out to dinner to celebrate my wife's birthday. Sat next to a couple. We start talking. The wife is also celebrating her birthday and it's on the same day. Haha. Crazy. We hit it off and exchanged information to hang out again. 2 months later I invite them to my birthday party and turns out the husband has the same birthday as me. My aunt died young on the 3rd of October of 2007. On the 2nd of October, 2008, I was a senior in high school. I was in my art class one morning sitting at a table of 4, when the teacher tells one person from each table to go and grab a stack of newspapers for us to sculpt on so that the tables don't get all messed up with clay. Another guy spreads out the newspapers and then I begin to work. I noticed that the paper at my seat is the obituary pages. I casually begin to read it and realize that the paper is a year old and the obituary listing exactly under my right hand was that of my aunt, who had died a full 365 days before. I'd like to think it was her way of saying hello and what's up, and to make sure I wasn't sculpting anything grossly inappropriate. I once burped 1 second before a power blackout on my neighborhood. It felt almighty. This reminds me of something that happened in high school. I was joking around with one of my friends, and I told her I could blow stuff up with my head. She said, "Prove it." Right then there was a loud boom, and the power went out. Turned out one of the school's power transformers had blown up. This happened to me a few months ago, and it was pretty dang improbable. I'm walking through BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit, where an average of 375,000 people pass through daily. I walk up the escalator to my train, and pass by an envelope lying on the ground. At first I didn't think much of it, but I took a couple steps back to pick it up anyways. The next part freaked me out. I looked at the address, and it was addressed to me. I instantly look around to see if it was a practical joke, or if I'm about to get assassinated or something. Neither of those were the case. The sender was a family friend. We'll call them the Johnsons. I knew that Mr. Johnson took the BART daily, but I had never personally ran into him. After work, I call him up and ask him about the letter. Turns out, he had about 300 letters with him on the BART, and was going to send them out for his daughter's graduation party. What in the world are the chances of him dropping the one letter addressed to me out of the 300, combined with the chances of me being the one out of 375,000 people to pick it up? Pretty wild. When I was a little kid, my parents would take my sister and I to visit my great-grandmother in the nursing home. She was mid-90s, blind, and to young me basically terrifying. I hated going to see her, to be honest. Every time we went she would touch our faces, you know, because blind, and talk to us a little. Meanwhile, her roommate somehow knew my name and would always try and grab me, even though my parents never said more to her than pleasantries. Always freaked me out. Fast forward to my mid-20s. My dad mentions, just casually as anything, that the roommate was his grandmother and my other great grandmother. She didn't know my name. I am a junior and look like my dad, so she thought I was my father. She was senile after all. Apparently there was a falling out when my dad was a kid, and he had no relationship with much of his extended family. She didn't recognize my dad because she'd never seen him as an adult. The fricked up thing is they lived in a city nursing home. Pretty big city too, and just by sheer freaking coincidence my parents' grandparents were roommates. I met my now husband at work. Turns out there are enough coincidences that my mom is seriously wondering whether we are distantly related. We were born in the same hospital, 2 weeks apart. We then both moved about 500 miles away and ended up in the same university together. We moved from there another 100 miles away and worked in the same company. We both have relatives in the same area in Dublin. We both have a relative that worked in the same hotel in Dublin at about the same time back in the 1930s. My mom and his grandmother have the exact same combination of unusual first and middle names. When I was about 12 it was the late 90s and I was really big into Pokemon cards. My mom took me to a card shop and I really wanted a Dragonite, but it was like $12 or whatever. My mom said, why don't you just get 2 card packs for that money? You get way more cards. Obviously she didn't understand what the frick a Dragonite was, but she only ended up buying me a pack. First card fricking Dragonite. It was crazy. When I was 11, I was in the park like half a mile from my house and I was flying a Winnie the Pooh kite. I was the only kid around with a kite at the time, and I was pretty zoned into it, and didn't notice when the string came loose. 100 feet of twine zoomed away and out of reach, and Pooh Bear was gone. Later that night, my family and I went out to eat, and when we came home there was a string dangling from the gutter above our front door. My dad grabbed it and started pulling. The string seemed to go all the way up into the night sky. We couldn't see the end of it. 100 feet of pulling later, there was my Pooh Bear kite. It came back to me. You have been visited by the hamster of joy. Comment, I like chicken to live a happy and full of joy like the joy hamster life. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.